All right, guys. Just want to say thank you for taking the time to come out today and do this workshop. So today I'll be introducing Corvid by Wix. And if you guys aren't familiar with Wix.com, Wix is a drag and drop visual builder for websites that you can easily build DIY websites without the hassle of CSS, HTML, or any coding. So Wix took the initiative to dive into the developer world and start to make a new project called Corvid. And what Corvid allows developers to do, it allows them to accelerate their JavaScript development by using the traditional Wix editor by dragging and dropping and getting rid of HTML and CSS and allowing the developers to dive straight into their JavaScript without the hassle of going back and forth with your designs. What you see is what you get on the page, and you can easily drag and drop your UI elements where you like inside the desktop view or mobile view. There's thousands of templates to choose from and hundreds of UI elements to choose from as well, like buttons, sliders, repeaters, pictures as well. There's so many. And this workshop, we're going to dive into the main features of Corvid, how they help developers, the spots where they actually can accelerate the way that you build projects. And we'll be doing this by going through a workshop by building a to-do list with Corvid. So you might have seen to-do lists in other languages as starter projects, but we're going to be doing this a little bit different, and we're going to be doing it the Corvid way. So Corvid allows you to have a lot of your built-in tools, so you don't have to go searching the web to find them later on. So think of it like your full stack utility belt, right? Like your favorite superhero, the maintenance man, they all have utility belts on them so they easily can access their tools when they need it. So with Corvid, you don't have to go anywhere else to create a database. It's right there, it's integrated. You can access the same tools you'd like if you're using JavaScript, like NPM packages. You can expose your own API. You can also connect to any third-party API with Wix Fetch. So today we're going to take a deep dive. We're going to have this first session today for 2 hours, and then another session tomorrow. And then on Thursday, if you'd like, definitely encourage you to come back for the portfolio workshop so I can show you how to build dynamic portfolios so that employers can see your creativity, see your projects that you've made at your boot camp, and then also you can also promote yourself. So I just also want to say thank you to Jatine for allowing us to have this opportunity to come and speak with you all and have you involved in this workshop. I'm really excited. I was looking really forward to this. So I'm glad that you guys took the time to do this, and thank you, Jatine, for setting this up. Cool. So I'm going to start to share my screen now, and let's get started with the presentation. Cool. So can everybody see my screen here? Okay. Awesome.
Yep.
So today we're going to learn how to build production-ready web applications with Corvid. So this workshop usually goes for 1 day for a very prolonged time, but today we're going to separate it between 2 days to give you some time in between, some breathers as well. So a little bit about myself. My name is Joshua Alphonse. I'm a developer advocate for Corvid by Wix. I live in New York. I'm a musician, music producer, so I love hip hop music. So if you guys I'll be in the Slack channel as well. So if you guys love hip hop, you love collecting records, that's what I do on my free time. I sit here in this room and I make beats, and I have my favorite artists from Jay-Z, Kanye West, Pete Rock. It goes all the way back in hip hop. And I'm also a full stack developer as well. So like I mentioned earlier, I'm a React guy. I love React. I love JavaScript overall. So I'm really enthusiastic about JavaScript. And I also love backend languages as well. So I actually came from backend development to full stack. And if you want, definitely come out and follow me on Twitter as well. So what are we doing today? Today we're going to build a to-do list with Corvid. So as you see, the design here is really nice for the to-do list. And we're going to learn how to use our integrated databases, drag and drop different UI elements, and then we're also going to learn how to use our built-in APIs as well. So what is Corvid? Corvid is a accelerated web development platform built by Wix so that we can give JavaScript developers the ability to boost their velocity when they're building projects. So you have your UI builder for web applications that we'll see. It's a visual UI builder. There's a built-in IDE, and you can also use a local editor as well. So if you use tools like VS Code, or if you use tools like Atom as well for as your text editors, you can also use the Corvid CLI to use the tools you're already used to. There's also integrated databases. It's completely serverless, and it uses Node.js. When you're using Corvid, there's production grade applications, but there's no setup needed at all to do this. So take a look at the professional UI builder here. You can easily go and select different images, UI elements, change your backgrounds, your fonts easily without the use of CSS or HTML, all right? Like I don't come from much of a design background, but I know what I want my application to look like. And that's why I come to tools like Corvid, because I want to code, I know what I want, but I don't need to take the time to go and design it all when I could just easily do this. So today we're going to go and start from the GitHub link I actually put inside the Slack channel. So if you guys go to the Slack channel, it's actually pinned there as well. And it says Workshop GitHub. So I'd like for you all to open up the Workshop GitHub there. And then also, there's a template to start with as well. But beforehand, before we move a little bit forward in the workshop overview, I'll show you again like how the application looks like and what we're going to accomplish towards the end of this workshop. So let me switch screens here. Cool. Can you all see the screen on the to-do list workshop? Can't tell. Sorry, there's share paused.
No, we don't see anything. The only thing we see is the slides.
Okay, one moment. Cool. And let me know if you can see this here.
Yep, I can see it.
Cool. So this is the to-do list workshop. So if I go and make a CodeStack workshop, that's on my to-do list today. I can press enter, or I can go and click here, and it'll continue to add to my workshop. I can go and complete my task. I can filter them out to see what's completed, what's active. I can see all of my tasks. We can also clear our list as well. So we'll be going over a lot of our functionality today, this functionality today in the workshop and how to build this with Corvid. So actually, let's go and go back to our screen here. Cool. So the workshop overview, we're going to be going over basic functionality, extra features, and we're going to explore the back end. So basic functionality, we create a database collection for task. So a database collection is another word for database when you're using Corvid. When you create a database, it builds a completely new UI for you to go through when you're building a database. So no need to go through terminal or look through like SQL Server. It's a big table. It's really easy to use, and we'll dive into that a little later. We're going to use the database collection to present the tasks that we have stored in our collection on the page. We'll add functionality to the to-do list for adding a new task, and then we'll add in some more functionality for changing the status of the task, saying if it's completed or if it's active. So first we'll start with creating a database collection for the task. Our integrated databases are super easy to use. They run with MongoDB in the back, but you can easily create many different fields with different data types. So we can accept videos, images, links, tags, you name it. Whatever you need to store in this database collection, you can store for your website. So here are the field types. Like I said, text, number, URL, image, address, document. These are your basic file types that you'll need when you're building a web application. So for our to-do tasks collection, we're going to create two fields. A field for the name of the task and another field to see if the task is completed or not. So in that case, our first field for the name would be text, and the second field for the completed task would be a Boolean. So it's true or false. After we store our data, our task in our collection, we're going to present the task on the page. And to do that, we use data sets, and we also use UI elements like repeaters to display the list of things that we have stored in our collection. So in this case, our task. It's so easy to connect UI elements to data components, all right? So usually when you're doing something with JavaScript, if you have something stored in a database, you'd have to probably fetch to some other external API that you have for your data collection, and then do a GET request and have that populate on your page. Here with Corvid, there's no need to do that. You can actually connect your data to UI components at ease without using any code at all. Because you already know that you want to display this data, so why take the time to rebuild and reinvent the wheel, all right? You're not really eliminating your use of JavaScript through your entire project, but you're accelerating the way that you build something because you know what you want already. The data set is what we use to connect the data collection to and how we organize how we want it to be displayed in the UI element. So the UI element, like let's say a list of cards or the repeater, we can actually populate it using the data set and filter out the data that we want without using code at all. And you can still use the Wix Data API and use code to filter your information. So the data set comes with a few different modes. Read only to present the data. Write only when you only want things to be written and saved to the database. So in that case, forms. And then we also have read and write only for updating existing data that we have there. So you can write to the database for a new entry, and you can also update it as well. So this picture here to the right shows an example of what a repeater looks like. A repeater is a UI element that has a list of different items. So our items in our project is for our list of tasks. It's really easy to connect a repeater to the data collection, and you can actually pinpoint what parts of the repeater you want connected to what fields inside of the data collection. So for this case, the task title 1 is connected to the title, which is the name of the name of the task. The check mark is connected to the field for completed, which is a Boolean. So when we do click that check mark here, that circle, it will actually register in the database that it is now a completed task. And we'll see that when we move forward with the workshop. So we're going to be adding functionality for adding a new task. So again, like I showed before, this is what it looks like when you add a new task. And whenever you're building projects as a developer, it's great to start and build your own workflow for how you want things to be. So when we have our to-do list, these are the steps that we would have as a user when we are populating our to-do list. So our user enters a new task into text input. They can either enter it from a button click or from a key enter press. So like when I press return, the task gets added to the collection. It shows the new text that we have from the task that we stored in the database. It will show that on the page. And then we also give functionality to clear the text that we have. So let's dive into the coding. Let's get our hands dirty with the code. If you guys have any questions, feel free. You can ask me right now before everyone gets to the links that they have, and we'll get started with the coding.
Just a quick question. Do you guys take care of the accessibility part of it then, since we're already just dragging and dropping everything? I'm guessing that you guys work on the whole accessibility to make sure everything's all set and done for the audit score and stuff, right?
Yeah, good question. So you can actually, with Corvid, you can still go inside different tags and then also change how you want things to be displayed in terms of like alternates as well, in terms of accessibility as well.
Okay.
Definitely, I'll find out some more information in terms of what we have internally in Wix to do that as well outside of Corvid, and I can definitely relay that to you as well.
Cool, thank you.
Cool. Does anybody have any other questions before we start to dive into coding? Any like comments or things you want to know about Corvid? Cool. All right, so we'll take a dive into, if everyone can go into the GitHub now, and I'll share my screen. Let's see, to the GitHub. Cool. All right, so we're here on the GitHub now. Can everyone see the GitHub? It's hard for me to tell on this.
Yeah,
we can see it. Yes, we can see it.
Awesome. All right, so the GitHub here is going to show you some useful links that we have. So right here at the top here, we have the to-do application, and that's actually the link to access the full finished project so you can see how it operates. And then we also have some more useful links as well, like the API reference. Our API reference is super helpful. I use it every day. It helps you figure out what APIs that we have built in, what functionality is allowed, what functionality you could use for your projects. And then also it'll give you some snippets of code that you could use so you can fully understand what's going on and with explanations as well. So let's take a look at the API reference real quick. There's plenty of different things here, and I'll show you how to navigate through it. So the Wix editor right here, $W, that's our main API that we'll use to select UI elements. And then once you go down here, you'll also see all the UI elements that we have available in Wix. And you'll also be able to see all the functions that are available when you want to use them. So in this case, if I want to know what functions I can use on an image, everything's right here. And then on top of that, if I scroll down, I'll start to see some code examples and snippets of how I can use it. So you were talking about accessibility. This is another feature that you can have here for alternative text if the image can't be shown, or if there's someone that needs some help as well with that, you can do this with images. So there's a lot of different functions that we have built in with all the APIs we have. And then on top of that, there's some more fun things you can do, like animations. You can work with bookings. You can use Wix Fetch to use third-party services. And then you also have Wix Pay, so you can process payments as well. So there's a lot of features packed into Corvid. We're going to touch a lot of the main ones here today and tomorrow. And let's get coding. So first, we'll go over the $W API. So $W, like I mentioned before, selects and returns elements from a page. So if I have an image on the page and I change the ID of it to my image, I can easily just select it by doing $W, my image, and then add a function to it. So let's get started on the project. If you open up the link that I sent inside Slack, you'll see that there is a template here. Hold on. Keep saying it's paused. Hold on. So there's this template here. It says edit this site. You can actually edit this site here. And then once you enter that, when you have your Wix account, it'll open up the IDE for you and you'll be ready to go from there. Let's give it some time to load. Awesome. Cool. So just let me know if everybody here has everyone successfully got onto Wix.com and got their account made and is able to see the GitHub as well.
Yes.
Yep.
I'm all good.
Good.
All right. So we can get started with the first step here of the workshop. We're going to learn right now how to actually turn on Corvid because like I said before, Wix.com is a drag and drop visual builder for websites. But now we've added that functionality of JavaScript with Corvid. And to do so, we have to turn on dev mode. So the first step from the to-do list workshop, we go here to GitHub. Go over to Git and let's see. So let's go over here, scroll down to create a database collection for the task here. So we already completed this first step, edit the website, sign in to Wix, and let's get started. If anyone hasn't got started yet, please let me know. I have no problem helping out with that as well. So we'll go here to create a database collection for tasks. And we'll start with the first part of the instructions. From the top bar menu, hover over dev mode and click turn on dev mode to enable Corvid. So that's our starting point right there. And once you do that, you'll see on the left side, a site structure pane will open up. And on the bottom, an IDE that we have built in to Wix will open up as well.
Do you want us to do that now while you're explaining this?
Yeah, sure. And the thing is too, we also have the GitHub link there as well. There has the instructions of how to get started with it. And I'll be stepping you through how to do so as well. So here we go. 1 second. Okay. So on this first step, we're going to, I'll code along with you. I will do this step with you actually. And we will turn on dev mode. So if you go here to the top of the screen, it would say turn on dev mode. Great. And the first step after that is...
Welcome to Corvid by Wix functionalities. To work locally, add the core log, bind your data to front-end elements.
Yep.
You have explore the documentation.
Oh, sorry.
No,
That
no
was my
problem. No problem at all. Okay, no problem. So what we'll do with this first one, we'll see that site structure sidebar on the left comes up, and we'll go to database. And under the database section, we'll click add a new collection. So if you'll see there in step 2, right there it says add a new collection on the database on the left side of the page once you turn on dev mode. Why does it keep pausing the screen? Okay, so once you create your database collection, click start creating. And then the next panel that opens up, you click the right button and you'll click create a collection. And for this task, we want you to create a collection called to-do task, written just how it is inside of the example there. Later on, we're using this name to interact with our database with code. So once you finish entering the name of the database collection, click the create collection button. All right. So once we create the collection, we'll start to add fields to our database. So to do that, there is a plus button on the right side, and we'll add a new field for completed. add a new field for completed. And then once we add the new field for completed, we can use the cog settings button there to actually change the field type of the collection, of the field. So if I go here again, let's see, add a new collection. I'll start this from scratch here. To do task. We'll leave it here for site content, create collection. Just loading up. Awesome. Just give it some time to load. Cool. So this field for title, that comes automatically with your collection. And when you're using this field, you can rename it something else, but just keep in mind that the key of this field will always stay as title. So we can use this for the name of our task. So we say mock task 1, right? And then we can add another one for mock task 2. We can then add a new field here for completed. And then once we go here and manage fields, we can go to text and scroll down to Boolean, and we'll change this field. So now it'll give us check marks for true or for false, right? So let's just populate this here. Okay. All right. So now what we need to do is select a UI element that we have on our page. Let me just drag this over here.
Sorry, did you make your field type Boolean?
Yes.
Or,
So
okay.
you want to make your field type Boolean, and to do so, you just go right into collection. And if you happen to make it a text beforehand, you can always change it by going to manage fields, and then you can choose the field you want and actually change the settings there. So if I go here to manage fields, I can go to completed, these 3 dots here, properties, and then change the field type if you didn't change the field type in the beginning. So you want to change it to a Boolean. Awesome.
Gotcha. Thank you.
No problem. So now that's a Boolean. We can then go to our next step here, and we'll add items to our new collection and add one set at a time if it's true. So let's go to our next module for presenting the task on the page. So this next step, you'll see there was like a link on the bottom of the GitHub page to bring you to the next module. So on the home page, we have a repeater element here. And the repeater is this here with the task. So like I said before, Wix is a drag and drop editor, and I can move this wherever I'd like on the page. That required no CSS, no HTML, anything of that nature. But the great thing about a repeater is that there's many different elements within a repeater that get changed at the same time. So if I change something in my first repeater, it will get changed in my second, and the ones to come afterwards as well. So now what we want to do is go to the sidebar here, the add sidebar, and add a data set. And to add a data set, we go down to the content manager. So these are the list of all the UI elements that we have built into Wix. Images that you can embed, buttons, you can design them how you'd like, a gallery for images, decorative art, You can also add music and videos. But what we're looking for right now is a data set. And to do that, we go to Content Manager. From Content Manager, we go here to Content Connections and Data Set. And we add one to the page. Once you've added your data set, this item comes up here. This icon here won't show up on preview or when the site is published. It's just there so that when you're making things on your front end, you can easily change the settings there, and it'll disappear once you go and publish your site. So you go here to Settings to access the data set, and you can connect any collection that you make in your database pane on the side, right? So in our case, the database collection that we created was to-do task. And we just go here to connect a collection on shoes, and we see our collection is there. If we had more collections, the list would be longer. So we go to do task. We could rename the data set, and we're going to set the data set to read and write only, because we're going to be updating tasks and we're going to be adding them to our database as well. The great thing about data sets is that it allows you to filter and show different information without having to use code at all, right? So for step number 3, let's go here to the number of items displayed, and we can actually change them to 20. You can change them to 30, or how many tasks you want to display in that repeater on the page. Because right now we only have 2, and as we go down, we can filter and show as many as we like. So we can also apply some other filters here for in terms of like what things are contained, what things are. You can also sort them in terms of how old the task was, or alphabetical order as well by using sort. You can use this that requires no code, or you could still use functions using the Wix Data API, which we'll cover later, and it will actually show you how to filter that with code. So for our next step now, we're going to select our repeater. And our repeater is going to be able to connect to our data collection from our data set. Our data set is saying how we're going to format this information later on. So we're going to actually go to our connect button, which is next to our repeater here when you select the repeater. So if I click it, and just be careful clicking in these tasks on the inside because they're different elements. But if you go and click the repeater overall, it will start to populate and change all these different fields by clicking the connect button, letting this menu load. Should come up. Let's see. Cool. So now I can go and choose my data set, right? So remember, the data set is connected to the data collection. So I choose data set and I go to do task data set. All right. So inside this repeater, we have the checkbox and we have the text. So for checkbox, we can just go, it's already connected to the data set. And then we can go to check state connects to the completed field that we have, that's a Boolean. We then can go back here on this blue circle to all connections. Or if you like, you can also click out and re-enter the connections button again. You can go to all collections. And then now we can select text. And the text would be the name of the task or what the task is. So go here to text connects to title. All right. So now if I preview the page using preview mode, Wix has an automatic save, but I also like to click the save button as well, just to make sure, just reinsurance. And then we'll go here and save. And we can actually preview. We actually preview our task here. So we'll see mock task 1 that we put in our database that was already completed, that we added inside of our Boolean field, and then mock task 2. That's there as well. Great. Cool. So then it's easy to go back and forth between preview mode and then what we have in the editor. This allows us to see the changes that we make on our page without having to publish it to the web beforehand. So you can work in your test environment and then bring it live to your users to be a part of. Awesome. So has everyone got an understanding of how that went down? Does anyone need any help? Is there any blockers here?
Makes sense to me.
Makes sense? Awesome.
Yeah, makes sense.
So
When you're
cool.
explaining it, it makes sense. I just was about to ask, like, was that supposed to happen? The mock-up task 1 was supposed to be at bottom?
Yeah, so you can sort it how you'd like. So I can show you right now. Actually, if we go here to the data set, you can actually go to settings in the data set and add a sort. And you can choose the field that you want to sort it by, completed. And then you can say false for first or true first, whatever way you want to set it as, right? Based on, or you can do it based on the data it's created or based on the data that's updated, and it will change. So if I go,
Okay.
you get the point. Should come up. Yeah, so mock task 1 is now on top. Depending how you want to sort it, and you can do it any way you want, you can add your type of sorts that you like. And then, like I said before, you can also do it through code.
Okay.
So let's move on to the next step here. So as you saw, like from this one that we just did, that required no code at all. On other platforms, that will require a lot more code to do. But you already know how you want this to be displayed on your page. So why go through all that work when you could just get this done very easily? And don't be afraid. Like, we'll definitely get into more coding. But there's certain tasks as developers that we know that we have to complete that we don't need to necessarily do all the time. So let's go to add functionality for adding a new task now. That's our next module. Awesome. So before we went over the control flow of how everything was, right? So we went from, let's see, let me bring this page over here. The control flow that's here, we're stating how the user would actually be interacting with our application, right? So let's see, let me stop this here. So one of the things you want to keep in mind is when you're building an application is the whole entire flow of what your user would be interacting with, and then also how you're going to be building it, how it's going to be easy for you to understand. So if you see here, we have this whole diagram, similar to like a UML diagram in a sense. And we'll start writing out on our homepage the front-end code using the Corvid IDE. You can also work in your local IDE if you want to use the Corvid CLI. But for this workshop, I really suggest you just work internally with the built-in features that we have here. So we're going to learn some new concepts. $W, which selects and returns elements from the page. That's one of our main APIs that we use so that we can actually interact with those different UI elements that we have on the page. So similar to that repeater, we can use $W and then put the name of the repeater and then actually add functionality to it, like on click. We also have on change. There's a lot of different events that you can do. So that brings me to our slides. Let's see here. Where does it go? Just one moment. All right. It's just taking a while. One moment, y'all. I'm sorry. Cool. So our $W function, like I said before, is our API is the API that we use to select UI elements. So there's a range of different events that you can choose from. So events are fired when certain actions occur on the page. So on clicks, changes in inputs, keyboard presses. We also have viewport enter and viewport leave, which allow you to create events when a user scrolls down on certain parts of your pages. There's a plenty to choose from, and we're going to dive in how to actually use some of these UI elements and their events with this next part of the module here. So we will go over to the GitHub again. And right now, we'll see here on our first step here, we're going to add code for the button on the on click, right? So when you go and open the IDE on the bottom, when you go and drag it up, you'll actually see that it comes ready with a $W.onReady function. Does everybody see the $W.onReady function that's there on the main page?
Under homepage code, yes.
Yep, under homepage code. So
Yes.
you'll see on the side there, right, there's page and then there's site. So the good thing about Corvid is that it allows you to actually make code just for your singular pages. And then you can also go to the site pane on the side there to add functionality throughout your entire site without having to jump from file to find out where you want something to do when you want to implement the entire website. It's easy just to go inside of there. So we'll take a dive now into the $W.onReady function that we have. So let me just open that up. Okay. And share this. All right. So our $W.onReady function that we have here, we're going to start this off inside of this function. So can anyone guess what this $W.onReady function does? Does anyone have any idea?
Would it
Like
be
a
an on init?
Yeah, like a constructor.
Exactly. So it works just like in constructor. And what it does actually, so I mean, I come from like a React background as well, but there's this other function called component did mount. And what it does, it renders, once the page loads, it renders the data. So $W.onReady function is similar to a constructor. When something starts up, it's going to give you the information that you need. So for this, this function actually starts functionalities that you have built in there and starts them once the page actually begins to load. Okay, so we'll go over to GitHub over here. And we'll go down to $W function and we'll start to add our first step. We want to add code for the on-click event of the button using $W. So our button that we want to click for this event is actually here, the add task button. Right? It's already labeled and ID'd for you. It's already there and set ready to go. So all you need to do is use $W right now to select this element on the page. So if I go down here inside of this onReady function, I can say $W, and then we can go to add task button. And we can say dot on click. Then open that function with the arrow function, and we can start to add different functionalities to it. So on click, we want the value of what the user is putting in this task input. So now we'll say, we'll create a new constant. So we'll say const task title equals to $W. And then task input, which is the name of this UI element here. This is a text input. Dot value. All right. So now we just said on click, we want this task title to be the value of what we have inside of that input. So for our next step, we're going to actually dive into using our APIs. So we have the Wix data API that we can use. So when you're importing different APIs or functions that you have stored in your backend or from another file, you want to make sure that you put your import statements at the top of your page, right? So Wix data API, we could say import, lowercase w for Wix, and then capital D for data. And we can say from, and then in quotes, you could either single or double. I prefer single. Wix dash data. So now we've successfully imported Wix data. Okay, let's see here. And cool. So the Wix data module, like we said, is going to be able to use the Wix data API that we have there. So if you take a look at the API reference, you'll see that there's so many different functions that you can actually use with Wix data. So for one thing that we'll be using mainly is insert. And we'll be making async functions to insert different information into the collection that we have. So in our case, we're inserting things into the to-do task collection. So let's follow along the to-do list workshop here on GitHub, and we'll code along. All right. So now we want to get the task. We have that from our value. And now we've imported our Wix data. And we want to then create a new insert item that we have there. So we'll create an object that has the data that we need stored. So we can say const new task equals, let's open up the object there. And we say title, which is the name of our field that we had stored the name. And we say task title. Oh, hold on. Let me just put that in there. Task title. Task title, and then we'll have another one for completed. False. Cool. So now we created the object for what we're going to insert into our database collection, right? But all this is going to actually go into an async function later on. So for right now, we're actually going to take this out of this function here. All right. So now let's add some more things underneath here. Let's add await $W dataset 1 dot refresh. So our data set here, I don't know my data set go. left the page. Let me just add this data set back in. One moment. Let me just adjust this real quick. Sorry, guys. Okay. So we have our data set 1. You want to make sure that you select data set 1. And then afterwards, so are you guys familiar with async await? Is that something that you go over in your boot camp as well?
Yes, we cover that.
Cool. So you know that the await is waiting for that promise to be returned, and it's refreshing that way. So we're going to use the .refresh function from Wix dataset actually, to refresh the dataset once we have that data coming through when we enter a new task. So for step 6, we want to make sure we clear the task by creating an empty string for the task input.
Can I see your code one more time?
Yes, you can. So we'll see here, I'll highlight what I have here. This is what we have so far. I would ignore this. But this right here is what we have so far. So if you scroll to the bottom, more towards the bottom of this page that we're on for the example, you'll see on step 7, we actually add everything that we just created into an async function. So const add new task equals async, and then it opens up, and then we enter all the things that we just had on the page into there. Is that clear?
Yeah.
Cool. If anyone's having any like trouble right now, please let me know, and I'll be glad to help to speed you up to where we are.
I'm just trying to find like how you got all of that right there, because I'm looking and I'm not seeing it right now.
Mm-hmm. So the steps beforehand, what step are you stuck on right now currently?
I think it's step 4 through 6 right now. I think it's the refetch the data set data.
Mm-hmm. So right now, these steps that are implemented, you actually want to put those pieces into place. So the object that you have that you're going to insert into the database, you can actually create this outside of that $W that we had inside of that we were selecting the task button on. That's a completely different functionality that's going to be happening. So you'll see here const add new task. That's where we'll be entering what we have for step number 4.
Okay.
And then you'll see it continue on step number 7 there towards the bottom, where step number 7 shows you how to combine those things together, and then also add a condition so that you could check for the emptiness in your repeater as well.
Okay. I don't know what's going on with mine then.
Hold on one moment. Go over to so what exactly are you having trouble with? Just putting things inside the async function?
Yeah, I don't know if I'm allowed to share my screen to show.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead. You can. Let me see who's speaking there.
That would be Carson.
Awesome, Carson.
This is what I got last right here, and then you went to somewhere and add.
Okay. Yeah. So don't worry about the ad page. You already have the data set there on the page, correct?
Yes. The data set is. Gosh darn it! It's not letting me right here. Hold on. I think I have to scroll this thing down. Data set's right here.
Awesome. Cool. So you have right steps there. And so if you bring up the IDE up a little bit.
Oh, the ID?
The IDE, yeah. The, IDE. I'm sorry.
Where's the IDE? Where's the IDE?
Yeah, right there. What you're scrolling.
No.
What the code is. Yeah, cool. So you have all these things in the right place. $W, you want to make sure when you choose $W, right? You actually put a hash right before, right after the single quote.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. Hold on, I gotta do that then.
Oh, not a slash, a hash, like shift 3,
There you
right
go.
next to the D in data set.
The D in data set. Okay.
Yep. So now it's selecting that data set that you have there.
Okay.
So right now the await is giving an error, but that's because we're going to put this into a async function in step number 7, so that all this works together. And
Okay.
the purpose of this part of the module is so that we can add a task to the page. All right. So your next steps now are to then on step number 6, right underneath where we have the refresh, we want to make sure we select the input and we have an empty string as well.
Okay, so we select the input and an empty string. So I'm guessing we go to settings.
No, you actually don't. You can actually go right underneath await, the line 14, and then actually do $W and then select the task input and then have the value equal an empty string.
Task input.
Mm-hmm. So similar to how you wrote it on line 14, so $W and then you have parentheses and then you have the quote and the hash. Yep.
I think I see what you're saying. Hold on.
Yeah. And there's no need to have select there. And then you can get rid of the word select. Yep. And then bring those $W that closer together. Awesome. And then do .value.
.value.
And then to an empty string.
Just type in empty string, I guess.
You can equal it to an empty string. No, like
I'm trying to get the equal in.
And then you can just have two single quotes there as an empty string. Yeah. But for this one, what we're doing is we're actually saying once we clear the task, we're going to have nothing there. So you can actually erase the text that says empty string and then just leave spacing between the two quotes. Yep. Perfect. Awesome. So now for your next steps, we're going to extract the logic on step number 7 to add a new task function and add a condition to check for emptiness. So I'd like to share my screen once more.
I will give it over. How do I? Oh, where's my button? Hold on.
No
there you
problem.
go. You took it.
Yep, no problem. So for this task now, we want to then go, let's see, over to this function here. And like in step number 7, we'll actually create an async function. And that will also have us operate these different awaits that we have here for the data refresh, and then also for the inserting into the database collection, right? So let's see here. Is anyone having trouble creating the async function?
No, it's pretty straightforward.
Pretty straightforward? Awesome. Cool.
It's just the stuff on the step 7 that we copy and paste on there, correct?
You can copy and paste. You can code along with it as well. Whatever you feel comfortable with. The main purpose here is for you to understand the information. So,
Okay.
if whatever you feel comfortable with, it's up to you.
Got it.
Yep. So we have the async function there. And now what we'll do is we'll add some more events to different UI elements on the page. So again, we're going to now add a key press function to the to the button that we
There you
have.
go.
To the task input. So once we enter our text there, we can either click the button or we can press return or enter on our keyboard, and it would submit to our database. All right. So we'll add a condition to say if the user presses enter, await, and add the new task once that promise is returned. And then once you go and do that, you'll be able to see on your page on preview, once you enter a new task, it will add to the page. And you can also check your collection to see that it's there. And the reason why it's there in the collection is because on line 31 here on my screen, I have await Wix data dot insert, the name of the collection, which we named it to-do task, and then the name of the object that we're inserting into the collection, which would be new task. Just keep in mind when you have database collections that whenever you name them or edit them, if you go here to the edit menu, you name it something, but you want to keep in mind that you set a collection ID to use your code. So once you name it, the collection ID will be created for you. And this is the ID that you'll be using when you're selecting the database collection on your front end code. So for this case, that ID was to do task. So if I put in the wrong ID, it wouldn't connect to that database. Cool. So I want you all to go check it out in preview mode and see if you're able to add a task, if it's populating the repeater, and then also check your database collection to see if those entries are there as well. And if anyone's having any trouble, please let me know.
I think the only issue I'm having is on my line 14. It's the await $W dataset1.refresh.
And it's saying, and you're saying,
it says parsing error, cannot use keyword await outside an async function.
So maybe you don't have your $W on ready function. You want to make sure you put the keyword async there as well in front of it. And then you want to make sure that your async function has add new task equals to async, and then an arrow function opening up the rest of the code there. Would you like to share your screen so in case anyone else that might be having that problem, we can step through that as well?
Yes.
Cool.
Oh, wrong one. Sorry, that was the wrong screen.
No problem.
One moment, new share.
Is anyone else seeing this type of issue as well?
I think I'm good for right now.
Cool. All right. So here we have, if you scroll up just a little bit more for me, please. Awesome.
Oops, sorry, I don't know how that happened.
No problem. Cool. So, okay. So what you want to do here, you have things all in the right place. But what you want to make sure is when you go to step number 7, those steps that were leading up to this point, the async await won't work there is because you need to actually put this into an async function. So if you look at step number 7, it actually will show you how the end result would look.
Yeah, I see that. It should be right here.
Yes.
So then that means all I have to do is just remove this line.
Yes, and you can get rid of everything on top of that async function there. Everything else there is correct. So if you go and get rid of that object there as well, perfect.
Okay, then I think I'll just test it out, preview, and there we go.
And let's see, try to add a task.
I'm clicking and it's not letting me. Oh.
There you go. Oh, those are the ones we have stored in there already.
Yeah.
You actually need to go back to, you probably don't have the Wix dataset to do task. Let's see. Do you have, let's see, you have Wix data there.
Did you connect your repeater to your data set?
My repeater to my data set. Let me scroll down. Repeater,
See?
connect to data set. I thought I did. I chose, okay, I don't know why it didn't want me to do that. I did click on that earlier.
No problem, man. And you can go there to checkbox. If you go back to the repeater, yeah. And then you click that connect button again, even though it's green. Awesome. And then go to checkbox.
Checkbox. Right here.
Yeah, go back to the repeater again, to that connect button. And then you'll see that little window pop up on the side once you click connect to data. And then you'll see checkbox underneath components.
Oh, okay.
And then you'll go to completed. Awesome. Then you can go back to all collections, all connections, and then go to text and connect that to the title. Yep. And then you can save the page.
Auto saved.
Yep. And then you can go to preview. Add a task.
What? I'm pushing enter. I'll go back to editor and try to figure out what's going on with mine, because I'm trying to follow as best I can.
Yeah, no problem. Let's see here. Yeah, this is a crucial part of this. Let's see. Can you scroll to the top of your code again? I'm sorry. Don't want to take up too much time from.
Yeah, I understand. I don't want to either.
So you can actually go there on line, let's see, line 3 and add the function for $W on ready. You can add that as an async function as well. So right there before
right here.
Right there before the word function, you can write async. Yep. Let's see if we can debug this here. You have your on click for the task title and the task input. Great. You also have the task input there for the to-do list. I see. Add new task. Oh, you don't have an arrow function. No, that's not it. Let's see. You have an arrow function there. Response title. Task. What is the name of your database there? If you actually go to your database, it's on the side there, there's a cog there to the settings.
The
if you just
settings.
click, so go to database.
Database.
Down to do task. Yep, and there's a cog there.
It's a capital D in to do.
Yeah.
Oh.
So
yeah, you can actually. So what you'll need to do is.
I think I know what I got to do. I have to change that to that.
Yeah, so your IDs have to be the same. So that's what we're going to check inside your settings to see if that matched up with your name.
My settings, okay.
Yeah, so if you go to settings there, remember I spoke about IDs?
Yes.
And so now you'll see the ID there. See how the ID there is to do task with a capital D, just like Jatine has mentioned?
Yes.
That's the ID that you'll have when you're connecting to the collection. That's why you probably don't see it on the page there. So now that you changed it there, you should be able to see inside preview mode. The code looks fine. And then you enter something.
Clicking on the button. There it is, Wix me.
There we go. Awesome.
Okay, I'm all good. Then I will stop sharing.
Hey, no problem. And it's not a problem if anyone has any like roadblocks or anything going on. Feel free to mention, and we'll give you some help because there might be someone here that has the same question as well. Cool. So now let's move on to the next module, and let's learn how to add functionality for changing the task. Okay.
Mine's not adding a task either. I don't know if there's something I'm doing wrong here.
You're not adding a task.
Yeah.
What is the name? Have you been coding along? Have you been copying and pasting code just so I can understand where you are with the code?
Well, I was coding along up until the point where I realized the stuff that we were putting in was already made in a function in the GitHub, so I just copied that over what we had.
Have you
now
checked your collection as well, the ID?
Say again?
The ID of your collection, of the to-do task collection, just to make sure that the name of the ID matches with the code that you have there. That's one thing you want to make sure, that you have your data set collected and that the name of your collection ID is matching up with what you have. If you'd like, you can also share your screen as well. We can quickly run through that before we get to the next
Sure.
one. Yeah.
Sorry, guys.
You're all good, John. I mean, I felt like I ate up a good time.
No problem. Cool. So you can see some code real quick.
There we go.
Awesome. All right. Let's see. This data. Okay, looks like you have. Well, you need the $W for the button as well. So I think you might have missed out on that there. That was actually from.
I think I got to get a bit confused at that point. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you add this $W function from step number 2 on the GitHub.
Come on,
So
move out of my
$W,
way.
and then you add the task button.
There it is. No, not hide video panel. Dear God. Thank you. The thing always gets in my way. Sorry.
So yeah, step number 2. That's what
There
you
it
need.
is. All right. Just somewhere.
So you want to put that. You don't want to just put that anywhere, but you want to put it inside your $W on ready function that's there inside that scope. So you can actually put it underneath. You can actually put it there if you'd like. I would put it. Let's see, task title. If you just scroll up, I'm trying to see where you have here. Add new tasks. Okay. So you can actually put it right inside of, let's see, you can actually put it right underneath that async function that you have there. That's fine too. But what's the scope of your async function there? Because the scope might be a little bit off.
I'm sorry, the scope?
Yeah, of the async function that you have there. Let's see. The add new task function. So constant task, and then let's just see what the scope there looks like from the curly braces. Okay. So scroll down a little bit just so we can see the end.
There we
of
go.
it.
It's the whole thing. It's right there.
Okay. So I see why you wrapped everything inside the scope of the async function. So everything from the task input that you have there, you can actually take out of that function, and then so if you see on line 23, you could take that out of the async function.
Okay.
Take that out of the scope, and then also for what else there? Let's see here. And then also like all the events you could take out of the async function, and then the async function you could have sit by itself, but everything is sitting inside the $W on ready.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're having an error here on line 25 with that parenthesis. Don't believe we don't need that there. Let's see.
Okay.
So like I said, like everything inside of the $W on ready function is separated in itself. So from the async function that we put in there to the events that we have. So you want to make sure out of that scope there, and then this $W function that you have there, believe that other curly brace is not needed. That's there at the bottom.
It's
Yeah,
here?
line 26. Don't think that's needed. Yeah. Then we can get rid of that.
Come on. Tell me what we need.
Hey John,
This is
I
not
posted
popping
I posted the code in Slack, so you can just copy and paste all of that if
Thanks,
you
man.
chose to.
Cool. Thanks for the help there.
Okay.
You just want to make sure that your IDs of your collections are matching up with the name that you have inside the Wix data insert function that you have as well.
Okay. Thanks, Abe.
Awesome. Cool.
Yep, yep.
So if you save and
Okay.
preview, you should get ready and get to go. And then we'll get moving on to the next module. Is your repeater connected to the data set?
I thought it was.
So if you go back to, oh, there it goes. your steps are there. If you go back to, if you look inside your database collection, you'll actually see all of your, if you go back to database and then you go to do task, you'll see all your mock tasks that you just created on the page there. They showed up.
Ah,
Yeah, it just takes a couple seconds for it to actually load up.
Gotcha. Thanks.
Shame on you, John. No, not really.
Awesome.
All right, cool.
So now everybody has their collections adding to the page. Now let's get to the next step. Cool. So our next thing that we want to do now is add functionality for changing the status of the task. So here's our workflow. We have the user checks and unchecks the box. The on change event happens. You get the task, and then you update it. So let's go over to this new module here for change task status, and it's add functionality for changing the status of the task. So we go to step number 1, add an on change event for the checkbox inside the repeater and extract the checked property of the checkboxes. So we're going to use $W again to select the completed checkbox and put an on change function so that when we do click it and change the status of that button there, we can then add a constant there with the event and the target of the actual object that's being changed. So let's see here. So completed checks text box. And let's go inside of our $W function and do the same thing that we did before. Let's add that event to our $W onReady function. And we're going to name that completed checkbox because that's the name of this UI element that we have for the task. So if you go over to that green circle there for the checkbox, you'll see the name of it is complete.
I'm sorry, you're still showing the slides.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
Hey, we can't see anything you're doing.
Yeah, it was just slides.
Okay.
I know it was lagging.
Let's see here. Thanks, guys. Awesome. So if you see here, this green circle that's there, that's actually the name of the element that's there. So we can actually go and click it and right click and go to view properties. And this is a menu that allows us to change the ID of the UI element and also add some more functionality like hide it on load, collapse it on load, and then you also see all the other functions that we have built in over here as well. So we all have an on change function that's there that we created, but we also want to be able to use the code to do it as well. So you can actually use this pane here to add new events based on what you want, and you can name them there, and it will create an export function for you on the page. But we'll dive in with the code now this time around. So for step number 1 in this module, we want to do $W completed checkbox and then add an on change event. So go ahead and code that in. And we'll actually put that right underneath our task input there inside of our $W function. So that when the page loads, all these functions are ready to go as soon as the page loads for the user. All right.
we were supposed to have something called export function completed checkbox change pop up below the on ready.
So you can use that as well. That's populated from when you're using this events pane here. But if you want to do it with code as well, you can do it straight from the code, and you can have those on change functions from there.
Okay.
So if I was to go and like go here and I wanted a new viewport enter function, I could actually just go right here to add. It'll name it for me. I press enter, and then I'll see this new export function pop up for me, and I can start the code from there. But for our case, we're just going to type these out. Is that understood?
Yeah, it's just understand. I was just thought I asked that question.
Awesome. That's a good question. Those are other like features that we have built into Corvid that allow you to kind of speed up things that that you might find unnecessary to type right away. If I could easily know that I want to add a on-click function to this, well, I take the time to write those little bits of line of code, but I can just press the add button and I can get straight into the functionality.
All
So
of this is inside on ready, correct? None of this needs to be outside on ready.
all this is inside on ready, so that when the page loads, when we click on certain functions, click on certain buttons, or click on the task checkbox, all those functions will be ready to go right when the page loads. So you can even use like practices like functional programming, and then create your functions elsewhere, and then invoke them inside your onReady function as well. Whatever way you'd like, I prefer it that way. But for this case, we're showing you how everything gets added into the onReady function, and how you can add it in there. If I want to take these $W API calls elsewhere into an external function, I could then just call like, let's see, function completed checkbox, and I could just invoke it inside the $W onReady function itself. Cool. So you can also add a new event from the properties panel as well, just like it mentions. And in order to update the current task item with the new checkbox status, we need to get the initial item from the collection. And for that, we need to actually use a new constant for item ID, because we'll be getting the ID of each item that we're selecting inside the database. So now, if we go to, let's see, I have here on line 50 here. We go to const item ID equals event.context.item ID. So that allows us to dig deeper into our data collection and get the ID of the task that we want. So let's see. So is everyone clear on step number 2?
Yeah, I'm following so far.
Cool. If there's any trouble, again, just feel free to mention, and we'll get you settled. So now we will have to use the wixdata.get function to get the item using Wix update. So the function to update the new value that we have inside of a repeater. So step number 3 highlights that we're going to have the item, we'll use wixdata.get, we'll connect that to the data collection with the ID of it. So in our case, it's to do task. And then we'll have the item ID, the constant that we made earlier. We'll make a new constant for the updated item, and we'll add it, have it equal to an object, and assign it, and mark the task as completed or checked. The wixdata.update function updates the collection with the new items that are from the front end. And then after that, later on, we'll return a promise. But for this step, we'll just go ahead and we'll put these constants together and then add the functionality we need to update the data collection that we have. So just keep in mind, to do this, you'll require to async the onChange event functions, since wixdata and getUpdate functions are asynchronous. So make sure that you're making async functions for this as well. So as you see, as a hint here on my line 48, because we said these APIs are working asynchronously. We want to make sure that after the onChange function, we add an async as well to activate these awaits when the promise is returned. So once we're done with that, let's preview our page and see how these tasks are getting updated in our data collection and on the page. So remember, it auto saves. You can also press save, and then you can press preview to go check it out. We could change our status there. Completed task. If I go here, it says completed. If I go to active, it's no longer there. So we're changing the status. And if I go back to the editor and I go to our database collection, CodeStack workshop says it's completed. All right. So how was this module for everybody? Was everybody able to accomplish this part of the task there? Is there any trouble? Please let me know.
It's at the part where I think it's on my line 55, your line 55. It says await promise.all update active task count. That part, the update to active task count was, it was red for some reason.
Yeah, don't worry about these here. We're actually going to complete these later on. So I'll actually comment these out. Okay. Because we'll actually be using this later on to just have a promise.all to complete all these tasks at one time.
Okay, then never mind.
Cool. Any other questions or issues that anyone may be having putting this together? Have you been able to preview this and look at your collection to see the changes?
No issues on my end. Kind of liking this.
Nice. I'm glad you are. Yeah, it's and once you get the hang of Corvid as well, you'll also see like how you can really navigate through the menus and use it to your advantage because you know what tools that you want to use. You know how you want your website to look, and you could just easily put things together the way you want to with your own customization through JavaScript, and then using the traditional Wix editor. It's an all-in-one stack of full stack development, honestly.
It's more focused towards JavaScript backend stuff instead of having to focus on the HTML and CSS.
Exactly. Because
my kryptonite.
I'm cool with HTML and CSS, but yeah, if anything, I prefer messing with the JavaScript portion of it.
Yeah, me too.
So I understand this now.
I'm the same way. All right, so it seems that everybody is good with that module, and we can move on to the next one. We're going to move on to the uncompleted task counting. So from here, we'll be able to actually count the amount of uncompleted tasks that we have, which is pretty important, right? So we're going to set the status of the text to present this number. And by doing that, we're going to use the Wix data query function. And we'll actually be able to query through different information that we have on our inside of our database collection. And then we'll also add some switch statements so that we can actually have certain cases where we want some text to appear on the page, depending on the number of tasks that we have on the uncompleted side. So without further ado, let's go on to the next step. Like I said, if anyone has any questions, feel free to reach out and we'll get you settled and get caught up with the rest of the group. So let's go to the next module here. Let's see. Okay. And let's see. So the Wix data query is a new concept that we'll learn here, and that contains functionality for finding the data in the query, right? So first what we'll do is we'll add an async function to the page, and this async function is going to update the active task count that we have. So initially, it's probably going to start at 0 because we don't have any incomplete tasks there as of right now. Or we might, because you have Mach 1 and Mach 2. So one of them may be completed and one other one may not. And that's a good way to test. And then after that, we'll add the query using the condition for EQ to retrieve the amount of uncompleted tasks from the collection, right? So let's see here. Let me just get this Zoom box out the way. So we have updated active task. Let's see here. We're going to add an async function. So we're going to create a constant for the active task count. Right?
Is this a new async function on the outside or inside of the onReady?
Good question. So this async function, we're actually going to call outside of our, actually, we're going to call on the outside of our onReady function. And then we're going to be using that elsewhere inside of our onReady function. Cool. So we have our, let's see here. Let me just get rid of this line here. It's count equals to active count. I could leave this here for right now. To do tasks. All right. So let's go and, because that's later on we'll call here in this await function. So let me go back to the slides here. Data. Okay. And we'll update the task counter by adding a constant for the query to query through the to-do task. And then we'll say completed, false, because that's the field. So when using EQ, you have the name of the field, and then you have the value afterwards. Those are the parameters that you enter. Then you can also set an OR function. So to say it would be to do task, use EQ again for the completed field, and then you can say set it to null, just in case. And it will count each one using the .count function. Is everybody following along right now?
Can we see where you have that?
Yeah. So I actually have here, so I see I have my $W onReady function. And then underneath that, I have my update active task count function as well, this async function here.
Do we make it similar to yours, or do we go off the code in the GitHub?
Yeah, so you can actually do it to what we have in the GitHub. So right now we're working off, this is working mostly off like the visitor ID to get the ID of the visitor. We'll actually try to cover that. I believe we'll be covering that later on as well. But I would follow what we have inside the GitHub because this gives you access to show you how to use the Wix data query.
Yeah, just making sure because it was slightly different. Just making sure which one to follow.
Cool. So, and once you're done with getting that count, let's see here.
Is that parentheses or bracket after the await get active task on line 98?
On line 98. I'm sorry, is that a parentheses here?
Yeah, is that parentheses or bracket?
Oh, those are parentheses.
Okay.
But for this line, I would pick to what we have inside of our documentation on GitHub. And then you can actually, because what we're doing there is we're using the Wix data query to query through the to-do task. And then we're using other functionality to actually select the different fields in there and then get the count based on what we have inside of this. Excuse me. Cool. So yeah, definitely I would follow step number 2. All right. So step number 3, let's update the task counter, the text elements according to our query results, right? So we can add to our async function a switch statement, right? So we can create a new variable and we say, let active task text that we have there. And then we can start a switch statement saying, if it's 0, completed all tasks. If there's 1 item left, show that what the items are left. And then default to X amount of items are left on the break of the switch statement. So for this, you can condition it either with switch statements or you can use if as well. This is way more appropriate to use switch for this case as well. Let's see. Pretty straightforward. It seems that you guys have enough JavaScript knowledge to really understand how switch statements work. And then we're also going to be calling our active task count dot text equals to active task text, right? So on our page here, let's see. There's some more elements for the active task text, and then we're going to be selecting the count as well. So our count is here. Our count is here, and we're selecting this. And then the text that we have will show the amount that we have there. So the reason why we use .text is because the data that we have here will actually show up inside of a text element. This function here is used only for text elements. So either ones that are embedded repeaters or ones that you have independently, you could use those as well. And we'll have that equal to our variable here for active task text. Has anyone ran into any roadblocks or anything? Does anyone need any help?
Did you keep both of those pieces or do you replace one or the other?
From step 2 and 3?
Yeah.
So you actually want to keep both. And so if you see here on step number 3, it says get active task count here.
Right.
That's what we would have from step number 2.
Cool.
And
thank you.
Statement underneath. Yep.
Or if we preview, it should be showing us our count.
Yeah, it should be showing your count. So these are some like extra features that you would add to your to-do list to make sure that you know, you're on the right path and you have all your tasks completed there. Moving forward from here, we're going to be doing some more things on filtering the tasks with Wix data, clearing the completed tasks, using a JavaScript web module, using the package manager, scheduling jobs, and then bringing your to-do list to production. It's really easy to deploy your websites here with Corvid and with Wix. It literally takes a click of a button. Whereas other platforms or frameworks will require you to use like other things like Netlify or Heroku connected to your back end, that connect to your front end. it's a lot just to deploy your project to the web. And you can easily just do that with a click of a button once we're done. So we're about halfway through the workshop. Our next thing that we're going to be doing is filtering the task. But beforehand we move on, I just want to make sure that everybody's on the same page still. So if there's any trouble or anything, please let me know now. If you're not seeing things that are previewed on your page, be glad to help out.
What was the preview supposed to do with this part right here?
So in this case, it will help you count your uncompleted task. And it will update your active task count. So like your active task means like the ones that have not been completed yet.
Okay, because I'm still getting a 0 on mine for some reason.
So what you want to do is you want to call the function in your onReady because you're not calling it right now.
Okay, that makes more sense. I see it. That would explain what it says at the beginning.
Yeah. So like, and that's a good point that you make about the onReady function, right? So like I said before, I use the onReady function when I'm doing things, when I'm implementing practices like functional programming, right? I make functions outside of the onReady function, and then I invoke them inside the onReady function when I need them to load on the page render. For this case, this is really getting used to how to build things and have them like, render right away instead of you doing the functional programming. But those are practices you can add later on. This is more of like a deeper dive to see how these APIs are working.
Just to check, this is just I'm trying to understand how it says the call update task active task count. You're just grabbing everything from step 2 and you're plugging it into, especially in the onReady, correct?
Yeah. So if you see here, well, you don't need to put this in the onReady. This function is standalone outside of the onReady function.
Okay, so thank God I didn't do that yet. I was about to feel like an idiot.
No problem. Hey, no problem. And then you add this functionality. So if you see here, this where it's commented out, this is where you would actually put.
I did do that.
Yep.
I did do that, but I don't. That's why I was getting a little confused. Which says the beginning of W onReady function. I'm like, okay, does he want it like exactly at the top, like right under add task button?
Yeah, because like right before when you mentioned the promise at all. That we'll use later on. We'll actually be calling this function inside of there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I made a mistake. I refreshed the page.
Oh man.
Oh no. Oh no.
Nobody refreshed their page. It erases everything that you did up until now.
Did you save it at all?
No, apparently not.
Oh man.
I thought it was auto saving. It's all good. I know what steps to do.
You want me to like send you what I got?
Nah,
Abraham?
most of it's already in the Slack, so it's fine.
Cool. What about your data collection? Everything is there. It should save automatically, and especially when you publish later on. When we do that, I don't run into those problems usually. So I'm surprised that it did that.
Yeah, it didn't reboot off the last one.
That's interesting. Okay, cool. All right, so let me know when you're up to speed, and we'll get going. But beforehand, Abraham, you were able to get through this module for uncompleted task. Okay, that was fine for you.
Yeah, everything up to this point was good. You can go ahead and move on ahead. I think I'll be fine catching up. I kind of can follow the flow of this now.
Cool. All right, so we're going to be zoning into our last part of today, and we're going to be going over how to filter your task with Wix data. So these are some extra functionalities and things that you'll be using later on with your to-do list. So let me just go over here. One. You don't have any. Cool. All right. So we have our uncompleted task, and now our extra feature that we're going to add now is to filter. So Wix data query adds functionalities for refining your data query here, just like how we did beforehand. You can use count, you can use find, you can use filter. There's a lot of different JavaScript functions that you're used to using in anywhere else. Like, think of Corvid, it literally is just like kind of vanilla JavaScript, but you're just adding the extra APIs on top of it to help speed up the way you develop. So for the task filter, we're going to be using these three buttons here. We have the alt task, the completed task, and the active task, right? So all of our tasks obviously shows all of our things that we have there. Completed shows the ones that we've done. And then active are the ones that haven't been changed yet. So Wix data filter contains functionality for refining a data filter. So we create a constant for the filter and we equal it to wixdata.filter. So now we can use that filter anywhere else in our code to set something for how we want our data to be seen. We bring back again the .eq to name the field that we want and then place the value based on what we're filtering on. We could use the .contains as well to filter through a collections field and then find the data type, or you can use between. There's so many different JavaScript functions that you're used to using that you could use there. It's everything that's available in JavaScript, you could pretty much do here. So again, we're going to bring back the data set selector, and we're going to set a filter on the data set that we have there. So in this case, data set number 1, or whatever you named it to be. Okay, and let's go over to, can everybody see the GitHub okay? Is that fine? I switched up some of the screen flow, so it's easier.
Yeah, I can see the GitHub. I'm looking at where it says new concepts of Wix data filter.
Awesome, cool. Yeah, before Zoom, I was having trouble with swiping things back and forth, but I think I got it now. So we're on our last module for the day for task filter. And we're going to be using the Wix data filter here. And you can always click these links here and they'll bring you to our API reference again. And our API reference shows all of the different APIs we have, from animations to Wix data, to Wix stores, to events, everything there. And it shows you each function that's available for all the UI elements, plus all the things that are available for all the APIs. So if we go here to Wix data, we're seeing all the things you might be familiar with: between, contains, ends with, EQs makes its appearance again, has some, has all, is empty. There's so many ways to filter your data with the Wix data API. Okay. Let me just go back here in this reference. Cool. So first we'll add an onChange function to the radio buttons that are already on the page. So our radio buttons say all task, completed, and active, right? So we already have the UI element for the radio button already set to an ID of filter radio group. We can create a $W function here, select the filter radio group, and put an onChange function to it and add functionality to it later. We get the filter value as a getter, and then we say const filter value equals $W filter radio group dot value, because as we change it, the value of the radio button is changing along with it as well, so that the data that we go and populate will filter through. Cool. All right. So if I go here and I say radio button, filter radio group, I can easily select that and I see there it says radio group. And just another quick tip, if I go here and I click on a UI element and I want to go and change the ID's name, I could just go here, click it, view properties, and then change the name of the ID if I feel like it. In this case, I won't. Everything's already set and ready for us to go. Awesome. So now This Zoom thing is in the way. Let's go over to the the GitHub. And now, once we create the filter using the EQ condition, we can create another switch statement there to filter through the value and show you certain things based on if they're completed. Because remember, we set that field as a Boolean. So now we can say completed .eq, the name of the field, and the value that we want. And then we can set another case for active if it's false. So it's not completed. And all task, another case that we have, will just filter, will not filter, and have all of our data displayed there. So with Wix data filter, you need to initiate, you build it, and then you execute how things are going. And the way you execute it is with await, and then you can also build it using all your different functionalities that you have to filter your information, like EQ, contains, between, you know them all. So let's take some time to do step number 3 through 5 here. And let me know if you have any troubles between anything that's happening there. So this code is pretty straightforward. We're going through building different case statements so that when we're clicking on different radio buttons, we get the results that we're looking for based on what's being filtered. Is anyone having any trouble understanding these last few steps in this module?
You mean the steps 3 through 5?
Yes.
No, it's straightforward. I understood. The last part just had me at a curveball where I just didn't know where the await was, but then I was like, okay, I see. It goes on the outside.
No problem. Yep, glad you're following along. So now, there's so many different things that you can add to this project. And I don't want you to just take away just the things that you learn, but take time to look and explore and absorb the things that you have there and try to be creative with what you have, right? These directions that are in this workshop are something that are not set in stone. You can go and add your own creativity to this as well. And even following up for tomorrow's session, you can showcase something that you might have done that's really cool, that's a feature that you found on Corvid. And I'll share some more resources as well. So if you find like a really big interest, you can take a dive in tonight and look further into it. So for step number 6, we're gonna call the filter task. And we have our radio button group on the onChange event, the add new task function. And then for a bonus, you can also use the await promise.all function there to call them all at the same time. And once that promise is resolved, it will just finish all of those functionalities there. So I believe it was his name, Carson. Is that what your name, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So you had a question earlier about these functions here for the promise.all.
Yeah.
So these are other things that you can add as a bonus here so that you can resolve these promises all at one time. And you can actually add that in your completed checkbox. You can also add them here inside of your async function task as well. So that's what step 6 is really highlighting there.
Okay.
Because we made these 2 different functions there, you can just create a new promise.all inside your both of those functions that you have, both those async functions, so that when those promises are resolved, those functions will be executed.
Okay.
Can you do me a favor and scroll down to your filter radio group?
Sure. So the visitor ID you don't necessarily need to worry about. That's just another field that we added there. You can also add a visitor ID if you'd like. It's not necessary. It's just something else that we have there. And we have this async function to filter through the task using the radio buttons that we have on the side here. Later on, we'll learn how to clear tasks with this clear button. as well. And let's see what else we have for today.
In your
Yep.
Sorry about that. Sorry, I was just curious. What in your filter radio group on the dot on change event, is it just the constant filter value, or is it just like kind of an empty one right now? It's when
I'm sorry, can you repeat that one more time for me?
like the $W when you're referring to filter radio group on the dot on change, is it just? Oh, that's just it right there. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. I see now.
You
Okay.
can use this into you can put this into an on change as well. So like similar to how you can put this inside this function here as for the on change, you can put that inside this function, or you can have it standalone inside inside your $W on ready as well. There's plenty of different ways you can do this.
Gotcha.
And this
Okay.
set it as a constant and then use it that way.
That way. Okay, cool. Yeah, I was just kind of confused on that part. That makes sense now. Okay, cool. Thank you.
Cool. Does anybody have any other questions or anything about anything that we did today? Be glad to help, glad to answer if anyone got stuck on the way through and needs like some, some extra guidance. We can also go through that as well because someone might have a question that, they might not have asked. No.
I want to give someone else a chance because I know I've asked a lot of questions.
Yeah, and questions are good, man. So definitely don't worry. If you have more, go ahead and shoot. Don't mind. And there's no spotlight here.
Yeah, like I said, I want to give others a fair shot first. But my question was still on the trying to just plug in the uncompleted task counter and just trying to find a way to where to call it exactly on the call filter tasks.
Okay, call filter task. So that's from the last.
The last one would be to call the update active task count, and the current one you're covering is the call filter tasks.
Yeah. So you want it to go to the update? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll go back to the uncompleted task counter. And you're stuck on step number
4, it should be.
4?
Yeah, where it says the call update active task count.
Okay. Then add a new add task function. Okay. So
see, I was able to follow everything through. I mean, everything does make sense when you're explaining it.
Mm-hmm. Good. So it says call update active task count in, the end of the add new task function, the beginning of the $onReady function. So it's just basically saying, let's see here. I'll show you. I'll explain. Add task. Let's see. Was it add new task? So we're saying how we called it inside this.
The onReady.
Yeah, on the onReady function. We're also saying that how we're calling it here inside of our other functions as well. So we're saying the beginning, the end of the add new task function, the beginning of the onReady function, and in the end of the changing task status on the checkbox of the on change event.
Looking for that. That's under the what I brought up earlier, the promise all thing.
Yeah, so you can also put them. That's another thing that it's wrapping up in the next step. You can also put them inside the promise all, or you can just call them here as well. The promise all just helps return all these promises all at once.
Okay, then I may want to add that now while I'm here. Okay, that's an array. Okay, I think I have a good idea then.
Awesome. Are you sure everything's good for you?
Sorry about that. I accidentally hit the unmute button. Let me test it right now.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, everybody take a dive into preview mode and check out your projects and see that now you should be able to add a task. You'll see it in your collection. You can update your task. And then also you can filter through your radio buttons to get the completed task, the active task, or all of your tasks.
Just taking a quick review on it.
Yeah, no problem.
Oh, you have the. Okay. I wonder. I was like, wait a minute. I'm missing the update active task, but you have filter task up first.
Yeah, so the same way I told you, like you can do things like functional programming if you like. You can also go here for filter. If you're going down the filter radio buttons, you can create a new. You're talking about update still? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. So with update, let's see here. Like I said, I created a whole new async function here, and then used it later on to promise all.
And do you plug in the promise all in filter task, or it's not really needed?
In filter task, let's see. In filter task, it's not necessarily needed there. You don't need promise all there.
Okay, then I think everything at this point is just in the on ready.
Yeah, so you want to have like those promises, those promise.alls, you want to have them inside of the $Ws that you have for selecting certain UI elements. So in this case, let's say you use the promise all for completed checkbox. And once that checkbox is completed, once that checkbox is changed, you want that promise to be returned for this function and for the filter function as well. So those functions will be
okay, so that's
because it's updating, because once you check that box, it updates the count, which is updating the active count element here. And then it's also going to the data collection because we used Wix data and query. And then we also use the filter task as well. And that is filtering and showing the different tasks on the page based on the switch statement that we implemented.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. So like once that function is completed, it gets to that last promise there and it goes, okay, let's run those two functions that we have.
Wait, why? Oh, no, I think I understand it. No, I get that. Okay, now that makes total sense.
Cool. And does anybody have any other questions, concerns, or any just like general questions about Corvid? Maybe things that you're wondering that it could do, things that might be in the pipeline. If you have any questions like that, I'd definitely be glad to give you some guidance.
Mine's is pretty simple. Like, what's the, you know how most websites cap you on terms of like how many megs or how many gigs you can use for your databases or whatever? What's the cap on here?
Cool. All right, that's a great question. So what you're using right now, Wix works off of a freemium and premium subscription base, right? So you can actually use Wix and a lot of its features for free, even Corvid as well. So from the integrated databases to Node.js, exposing your site's API, connecting to third-party APIs, all that comes free with Corvid out the box. Now, in terms of the data that's there, you start, I want to say it's 25 gigs that it automatically gives you in terms of what you could store. You can make as many database collections as you want. You can also make as many Wix sites as you want as well. Doesn't matter if you have a premium subscription or not, you can make as many Wix sites as you want. The one thing with when you have a Wix site though, when you add premium to it, it will get rid of the banner that's on there on the top of the page. And so if you have a free site, you'll have the banner. If you don't, you can create your own domain and host it through Wix, and then you can actually get rid of that banner. And I'll actually show you right now what some of those premium subscriptions look like as well. And they're pretty cheap. And let's see here. They're pretty cheap, and they actually help out a lot because you'll get access to different integrated business tools like Wix Pay, Ascend, which helps with email marketing and campaigning. So it's great. Like Wix and Corvid is great if you have a business as well. if you have a website that's hosting a business like a store or booking events, it's great to build websites like that at ease because we have these internal dashboards that you can work through to actually easily manage everything that's there, from your contacts list to your API keys, using the secrets manager. There's a lot of functionality that's built in from the traditional Wix way and integrating it the way that we do things with Corvid and Code. So let me just go here and see. Let me bring up the premium subscription list here. We start at $13 a month for premium. Let me bring it over to this side of the screen. All right, so we have two different tiers here. We have the website plan, and then we also have business and e-commerce. So the business and e-commerce come with the top of the line one for business VIP comes with 50 gigs. I like this price point for a business unlimited. That's 35 gigs of storage. You get a lot of things that come with it. Vouchers, professional logos. You can create your own domain. You get rid of Wix ads. You get a $300 voucher. And you get unlimited bandwidth for your website. And everything's hosted through Wix. Let's see here. Let me go back. What else here? So I'm glad you guys took the time to come out here and do this workshop. I hope you took away something and learned something of how Wix and Corvid can actually change the way that you develop. Our focus is to really pick up the velocity of how developers put their projects together, how they collaborate, and how they design things at ease without the hassles of HTML and CSS. As developers, we like to get things done and get them done fast because there's so many deliverables at the same time. And as I was also in a boot camp as well. I went to Flatiron School. And what I've definitely learned is that to create production-ready products really comes from the core of the functionality. That's what the JavaScript is allowing us to do. There's thousands of templates to choose when you start with Wix, or you can go and create your own. So we're talking about not wasting time doing certain processes and getting to that production-ready point without having to go through a lot of different loops. You don't have to go and deploy it through any external services like Heroku or Netlify. Everything is built in, and you can just go and click the publish button, and your site is exposed to the web. So from this site, you guys just built, you can go and click publish and publish it to the web. And then you'll be able to access the URL from your phone, from your desktop, or anywhere you have internet access. All right, let me go back to Zoom here. Stop sharing. Cool, guys. So again, thank you so much for taking the time today. If you have any questions, definitely feel free to reach out to me. I'm in the Slack channel. I also drop my email and some other resources that you guys will have. And I'm super excited to do this again tomorrow and wrap up this part of the workshop. And then on Thursday, I definitely encourage you to come back and I'll show you how to create dynamic portfolio sites with Corvid. And I can actually show you a preview of what my site looks like right now for my portfolio and show you how what to look forward to in the days to come. So it's
I just wanted to clarify one thing that you said. You said you could just hit publish up there, and that's without any premium account or anything. It's just based with the free stuff, right?
Oh, so here's the thing: when you publish, right, and it's free, it will say the name of your account .wix site. But when you get premium, you can go and name the domain whatever you like.
Okay, cool.
So I'll show you actually an example of kind of what a freemium website looks like, right? And I'll show you my example for my portfolio page that I've created.
Okay.
So if you see here, right at the top of the page, it says, "This was designed with Wix.com website builder. Create your website today and start now." So that banner is going to be there if you have a free site, no matter what. All right. And I created this portfolio site because, like I said, I went to a boot camp as well. And I'll say this, one thing that has helped me a lot when I was doing my job search was having a really nice portfolio, displaying my projects, and then showing how unique and creative I can be with the things that I create, right? Employers like to see a lot of the things you're involved in terms of coding, blogging, being an internet influence when it comes to coding, and then also just like being able to contact you the right way. So what I really focused on when I graduated from a boot camp was working on my portfolio project and getting myself out there and sharing it to those that need to see it. So this is my example of what I create with Corvid. And if you go down here, I also have like we'll go over some APIs to get a QR code. So if you're at a conference or if you're at a meetup, you could easily just take out your phone, show somebody your website and say, hey, you want the link to my website? Just go and scan my QR code really quickly or give them the link. We can dive in to show you how to do Wix animations with the timeline API. So this is all animations that I've created with JavaScript. Right? And I can go and hover over things. I have some animations on there.
Nice.
Yeah. And then like other blog posts as well. So employers love to see blogs. I was really active on my blogs and sharing new projects I've done, even outside of the stack of what I've learned in boot camp. So I like working with Raspberry Pis. So I've done like I have blogs on my own herb gardens that I've actually created through automation with Python and Raspberry Pis. So people want to see like the things that you're getting into. And you guys are really fortunate from the boot camp that you go to because you learn so many things that are essential for a stack of a developer of all trades, in my opinion. You know, from Azure to SQL to Angular, that's very unique to other boot camps that I've spoke at and even the boot camps that I went to. We'll also give you like a way to show all your projects, links to your projects. Your projects will have its own page. And all of this right here was built using the free version of Wix. This is not even out to premium. So you'll see how beautiful this can get and things that you can do. And I'm really excited to show this part of the workshop to you all because I think that's really crucial for you to move forward, especially when it comes to your job search. Yeah. And that's all for me today. And I'm super excited to jump back into this tomorrow. And I'll see you guys tomorrow at 9 a.m. your time. I just want to also say again, thank you, Jatine, for giving the opportunity to come here and speak to the students. And I'm glad you guys got to take the time to dive into Corvid. And if you have some time later on today, if this didn't tire you out, go and dive in again and see what things that you can do on your own. Start building your own projects and explore. And I'll share some more links and resources inside the Slack channel as well. And we'll pick it up again tomorrow.